Hello again. Welcome to episode 44 of Dinner from the Dining Car. Today we're going to be making the Chesapeake Ohio's Irish lamb stew with dumplings. Today is Sunday, September 20th. So you'll have to excuse me. Anyway, this is what you're going to need for this recipe. First thing you're going to need, and excuse me, this has been vacuum sealed so it doesn't go crazy on us, a 2 to 3 pound lamb shoulder roast. Now you're going to cut this, if there's any bones in it, you're going to cut it off the bones, and you're going to cube it in like 1-inch cubes. Next, you need, come here, a large onion. You're going to dice this up in fairly good chunks. You're also going to need 3 or 4 white potatoes. Now these are going to taste really good in this. These you're also going to cube up a little bit. You're going to need minced garlic. Good stuff. You're going to need a teaspoon or 2, maybe a little more, of thyme leaves. Although I am tempted to go out and get fresh thyme out of the garden. You're going to need 2 to 3 bay leaves. You're also going to need a few tablespoons of chopped Italian parsley. That's going to go into the stew. Now this is a crock pot recipe, so well, let me get to that in a bit. For the dumplings, you're going to need Bisquick. Now the funny thing about Bisquick, I was doing, oh shoot, Judy just reminded me, I forgot one other thing. Vegetable stock. You're going to need that for the stew. Back to the dumplings. Bisquick. Doing a little research in a new railroad cookbook, Bisquick was actually invented on the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe. One of their dining car chefs had a biscuit making recipe that he specifically designed. The head of General Mills at the time was riding the train. He stepped on board the train into the dining car and was surprised that within 10 minutes of him being in the dining car, there was a big plate of fresh, hot biscuits brought to his table. He was curious, and so he called the chef over and asked him, "How did you make these so quickly?" And the chef said, "Well, sir, I have created a special biscuit making mix that I use. The biscuits come out fantastic, and they come out quicker than normal by scratch biscuits." Anyway, the man from General Mills decided to license this formula from the chef and paid him a royalty. The chef was able to retire very wealthy because Bisquick, as you know, everybody uses Bisquick. But this recipe does call for Bisquick. It also calls for, this is for the dumplings, our good old friend, eggs. You're also going to need milk, some salt, some pepper, and some chicken bouillon. Now, how this recipe works is you cube the vegetables, you cube the lamb, and then you basically put it in a crock pot. That strange hand you just saw was Judy reaching over and grabbing something out of my pocket. But you're going to cube this all, put it in the crock pot in the vegetable stock, and you're going to just cook that. And meanwhile, you're going to make the dumplings on the side, get them nice and partly cooked, and put them into the crock pot along with everything else. So this is going to take several hours to cook, 5 to 6 hours if you want it done properly in a in your slow cooker / crock pot. I imagine you could use an Instapot if you have one, but it's still going to take time. Anyway, that's it. That's everything you're going to need. And a little bit later, we'll be back, and I'll have the lamb cubed, the carrots. Shoot. Silly Tony. Carrots also go in the stew. These are your baby style carrots, and we're just going to simply cut these in half to put in the stew. We're not going to use the full pound. You're going to use about half a pound cut in half, and they go into the stew as well. Sorry about that, folks. I forgot the carrots. Anyway, that's everything you need for this recipe, and we'll be back later when we start cooking. We'll see you then. Okay, we're back, and we're getting ready to put everything into the crock pot. We have a couple of pounds of lamb. Now this has been cut into little chunks and browned in a little oil and just a little bit of flour. Do not overcook this when you brown it. It still needs to be a little red, because if it's too done, it'll toughen up and that will suck. And that goes into the bottom of your crock pot. I hope I'm not blocking the shot too much. Let me kind of bring that in a little bit. Next, you have 3 medium white potatoes cut up into little chunks. Those go on top of that. Make sure that's all pretty level. Next, you're going to have a medium onion cut into relatively good sized pieces, and half a pound of baby carrots halved. These will go right on top of that. Okay. Set your crock pot on low. Next comes 2 bay leaves. 1 and 2. That's going to make some real interesting flavor. Next is a pinch of ground thyme. Now, you can use thyme flakes if you want. I have a garden, so oh boy, are we ever using fresh. We are using fresh thyme in this. I'm just going to use it all. Screw it. Then comes garlic. It calls for 2 cloves of garlic minced. Now, those of you who've watched these videos know I cheat, and I used minced garlic. When you're using minced garlic, 1 teaspoon of minced garlic equals 1 clove of garlic. So you want to put that in there. Then comes 2 tablespoons of parsley. You can use parsley flakes, again, because I have an herb garden, we have the real deal. Now you're going to want to you're going to want to keep that parsley out, because you're going to use that parsley for the dumplings, which we'll be making an hour or 2 from now. So all that's in there. Now comes fun. Your vegetable broth. you want to use enough vegetable broth to cover all of this. That's why I bought 2 quarts. Because it's going to take pretty much the most of 2 quarts. By the way, you should shake this stuff up before you use it, because it does set sometimes. And you're going to pour this right on top of everything else. Again, you may not use both quarts because you want to put just enough to cover everything, which is what we have right there. You know what? Heck with it. We're going to use both quarts. That way we have some nice stewness. Let me move this camera and show you what it looks like. That's everything in the crock pot. Meat, potatoes, onions, carrots, seasonings. And then you'll just put the lid on this. Now this is going to cook for 5 to 6 hours. We'll be back after about 2 hours because we've got to get the dumplings started, and you're going to need a big pot of water for those dumplings. And while I'm making the dumplings, mixing it, I'll give you a little more info on the history of Bisquick. Needless to say, the guy who invented it was pretty darn smart. So anyway, that's it for the next couple of hours. It already smells incredible in here, folks. So we will see you then. Okay, here we go. It's about 20 after 3. The stew is just smelling absolutely phenomenal in here. So now, if I can quit commenting about the stew because it smells so good, now we're going to take care of the dumplings. Oh, here's a little more information about our old friend Bisquick. This is according to a couple of historical resources. When General Mills decided to start making Bisquick, they hired the railroad chef as, I guess, a technical advisor or a kitchen master to make sure they had the formula for Bisquick exactly the way he had it. Excuse me a second. Scissors. So they wanted to pay him at what the time was an exorbitant amount of money. Remember, this is 1930. An exorbitant amount of money at the time was $2,000 a month. That was insane at the time. The chef who invented the Bisquick and stayed with General Mills to make sure that their formula was correct, said, no, that's not what I had in mind. Why don't you pay me the same wage you're paying your average factory worker, and give me a quarter of a penny per box that you sell? Well, they didn't, General Mills thought, well, this will sell some, but not so much, so that, oh yeah, we can afford to do that, so that's what they did. And he stayed on with General Mills until he retired. And the first year and a half that Bisquick was around, it sold over 1 million boxes. That's 1 million. Okay, mathematics, I quit. I can't do math today. At 4 boxes to a penny, that was 250,000 pennies the first year. And divide that by 100, that is $2,500 in a bonus. That doesn't sound like much, I agree, but that kept coming in year after year after year, and eventually they were selling so much of this stuff that the man who invented it was able to retire wealthy. Didn't hurt General Mills either. So anyway, that's enough on the history of Bisquick. Now we're going to actually get to making the dumplings. You'll need 2 cups of Bisquick. I'm going to use a 1/2 cup measuring cup because as you can see, the box is a little difficult to get a full cup measuring cup into this bag. 3 and 4. So that's 2 cups of Bisquick. Then you're going to add 2 eggs. I need my whisk. Boy, I really need to learn to get all these tools out way ahead of time, so I don't just have to disappear from the camera. I kind of want to just whisk the biscuit quick by itself, get all the major lumps of it. And you're going to crack 2 eggs of it. And you're going to add 1/2 cup of milk. There's 1/2 cup of milk. Now, earlier, we had all this fresh parsley. Because you need to cut extra, because you need to put approximately 2 tablespoons of this fresh parsley into this mix. There's 1. There's 2. And you're going to add a little bit of salt. Just crack until it looks like you got about 2 teaspoons. Then you're going to whisk this all together. This is going to form kind of like a batter, and the whisk is not really the right tool, because as you can see, it's kind of like clogging in the whisk. So I would say grab yourself a fork, which I'm about to do. Because as you can see, I got dough all over my whisk. Just grab a little fork and just whisk this all around. Make sure you get that all mixed nice with the eggs and the Meanwhile, you're going to have on your stove a large pot with a gallon of water. And you're going to boil that. Into that water, you are going to add a tablespoon of chicken bouillon. Now, we can't get the tablespoon into the thing, into the jar. So remember, a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. Oh, you need 2 tablespoons. Excusez-moi. So we will need to put 6 teaspoons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're basically going to be, now once that water comes up to a boil, excuse me, I didn't want that batter drying on my whisk. Once that water comes up to a boil, which it's just about ready to do, you're going to grab a spoon and stir it. You're making like a chicken bouillon. You're going to drop the dough into this boiling water in tablespoon-sized pieces, and you're going to cook it. Excuse me while I move the camera. You're going to cook it in the water for about 10 to 15 minutes. So once that water is good and boiling, which wouldn't be too much, this already looks yummy. Ooh, fish good too. Oh yeah. You want to grab yourself a tablespoon, and you're going to come over here, and you're going to drop little blobs of it into the water, and hopefully they don't completely come apart. Sometimes they might, sometimes they might not. Now these will have a tendency to rise to the surface once they start cooking, as they're supposed to. And what we're going to end up doing is serving the stew on top of the dumplings. And once that should start boiling pretty good here in a minute. There we go. That's a good rolling boil. I don't know about you folks, but making dumplings, this is a new thing for me. Never really done this before. But this is how this recipe commands they be made. And you just keep dropping them in the pot of boiling water until you run out of batter. They smell really good. So, probably because of the parsley. And we're almost out here. Let me just show you what this looks like boiling up. May look a little weird. Ooh, get that off the side there. May look a little weird, but I can tell you, it sure smells good. While I'm here, I want to show you what the stew looks like. Now it has been cooking for quite some time. Well, oh my goodness. The onions are all cooked. Let me move this closer. Oh, I imagine you could see that while I was stirring it. But that's what your stew is starting to look like. All the lamb, all the potatoes, all the carrots, the onions, all the seasonings. I think those bay leaves may have completely disintegrated because I don't see them. I do, however, see parsley and some thyme. So anyway, that's it for now. In about 10 minutes, we'll check these dumplings out. Turn the fire down on them because they're going to overboil if I don't. We'll get the dumplings out. We'll get everything plated up. Get some cleanup done here. And we'll see you then. We'll see you in just about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes. So now we're going to plate this up. The dumplings look incredible. Oh, these look so yummy. Let's get Judy some dumpling. Judy, do you want it on or next to your dumpling?
Next to my dumpling.
Okay. Look at how gorgeous those dumplings turned out, everybody. They are just beautiful. Now, we'll come over here to the stew, which also smells just really good. I need a soup ladle. Soup ladle. Soup ladle. We'll
Baby just threw himself into the water.
And we'll just scoop out some soup for Judy's plate. Oh, look at this. This looks amazing. This looks like definitely something you want to eat here, guys. Oh, let me get her another chunk of lamb or two in there. Ah. Hard to do this with a ladle. Ah, there's a good chunk of lamb for her. There you go. And that is what the plate looks like. Oh, this is really hot. Now we'll get some dumplings out for me. Well, a couple of the dumplings kind of fell apart, so that really doesn't surprise me though. So you have kind of a mess here. Yeah, the ones that fell apart really fell apart. I mean, they really fell apart. I'm looking for a whole one here, and I'm not finding much help. And a little stew for me. Well, because my dumplings basically fell apart, I'm going to put it right on top of the dumplings, which may have been a mistake. Hot, very hot. There you have it. Some nice Irish stew with dumplings. There you have it. That's my plate. And over here, Judy's plate looks absolutely incredible. That really looks like dinner. Okay, well folks, there you have it. The Chesapeake and Ohio's Irish lamb stew and dumplings. This is courtesy of a book, Dining by Rail, which I just picked up last week. So there you have it. We're going to let this cool for a few minutes, and then we're going to eat. If you would be so kind, smash that like button for me. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have questions, comments, or you want a copy of this recipe, email me at dinnerfromthediningcar@yahoo.com. And we'll see you next time. Have a good night.